Or not. Joining me now is Representative Pramila Jayapal, Democrat of Seattle. She's a senior whip of the Democratic Caucus and member of the House Budget Committee. Congresswoman, thanks so much for joining us. While we take a look at these live pictures, I want to get your reaction to day one of President Trump's trip abroad.
Well, I think that in some ways, maybe it came at a good time for him. He's trying to take attention off of what's going on here. I think that, he has really put forward no broad foreign policy, so I think that this trip occurs in a little bit of a vacuum, and it'll be interesting to see what he says. I think the reports that I heard on your station a little bit earlier are right. We're not going to expect to see him bringing up human rights abuses or some of the other foreign policy issues. He's going to focus on just the deals that are being made as we saw some of those being signed. So let's see what happens. But the reality is he's running away from a massive situation here that really does, I think, threaten his credibility and the administration's credibility, but also our democracy.
So let's talk about that massive situation, as you put it. What was your reaction to Rosenstein's briefing and the reaction of some other Dems around you as well?
Well, I think there was a lot of frustration. We were told it was going to be a classified briefing, but, I think most of what we heard, if not all of what we heard, was things that we've seen on your televisions and in the newspaper. But I do think it was important for him to come before us because, for me at least, it gave me the opportunity to see and assess how serious he is about the independence that is going to be afforded to Director Mueller. And I did feel that he was being honest, real, genuine, whatever word you want to use, about the fact that he does want Mueller to investigate this situation. He does want him to have the resources he needs to have. And I do think that it was important that he decided that we needed to have a special counsel. I don't think the Republicans were running to do that, but he, as acting attorney general, did make that decision, and it was a very important one. It's an important first step. I also, though, think that it is certainly not sufficient. We still believe, the Democratic caucus still believes very strongly that we need an independent commission made up of, people who are not members of Congress, who can really look at not only the short-term issues and some of the criminal pieces that are going to come up through the special counsel, but actually looking longer term at how do we assess what's happened, the damage that's been done, and get to the bottom of the facts so that we can make sure that nothing like this ever happens again.
Representative Jim Hines, he attended the briefing with Rosenstein, Congresswoman, and he said that Rosenstein refused to answer the question who asked him to write that memorandum. His answer to that question was, that is Bob Mueller's purview. What are your thoughts on that?
That was the most frustrating part of the briefing. He was asked that question, I would say, probably more than a dozen times in a dozen different ways, and he refused to give an answer to that very simple question. He said that it was because that is part of the investigation. He doesn't want to taint the investigation. He several times, said, I don't want to make news. But that was the most frustrating piece. Obviously, the reports have shown us that his testimony says that he knew that the president was going to fire Comey before he got the memo. So then the obvious question becomes, why did you write the memo? Did you wake up one morning and just decided it was a great thing to write the memo? Or were you asked to write the memo? What was the purpose? Did you know that it was going to be used in a certain way? Whether or not it was your intent for it to be used that way. I think those are at the heart of the question, questions that need to be answered and are going to be at the heart of really looking at whether, how much of an obstruction of justice this was, because certainly on the surface it seems that way, but intent is a part of proving obstruction of justice, and so that is going to be something that I think Director Mueller is going to have to look at. But we in Congress feel that those were questions that he could and should have answered to us.
I want to remind people what we're taking a look at right now. We see President Trump making his way through that tour of the museum in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, in what looks like, to me, to be a golf cart. You just take a look at the extensive security that's there for him, along with the press taking pictures of him and video as well, just so everybody knows exactly what they're seeing on their screen. Congresswoman, should the Trump administration be worried about what Comey may say in this upcoming hearing that we're hearing may happen post Memorial Day?
I think Trump is going to have to be worried about everything that's going to be said. And frankly, I think that people in his administration have to worry about how quickly he may throw them under the bus. I thought it was significant that he said, you know, there's been no collusion that I have been a part of, or I forget what words he used, but, you know, it certainly seemed like all of a sudden he's distancing himself from other people in his administration. This is one thing after another. When I look back at this week, I am frankly stunned by how much happened from, you know, the very beginning of the week where we heard that the president had shared classified information that really could hurt our attempts at global security, national security, to then, with the Russians, to then the reports that he had actually intimidated or tried to intimidate James Comey, that he had asked for his loyalty, then to the reports that he had actually asked him to drop the investigation of Flynn, and then to the reports that he called James Comey a nut job the day after and said that, and told the Russians that now the pressure was off. I think these are damning details, and obviously what we are trying to do, and what we've frankly been trying to do for months now, is get to the bottom of what is the truth. The American people deserve that. That is not a partisan issue. It should not be a partisan issue. And, you know, and I really believe that this is a critical moment that we're in right now.
And while all of this is happening domestically, as we see the president making his first trip abroad to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, seeing how everybody will ultimately react to that as well, and if his presidency will get the boost that he likely is looking for right about now. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, thanks so much for joining me. Very much appreciate it. I want to